Hey, what's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to the MSP Water Cooler. I am your host, Jonathan Schofield. My friends call me Scofie, and we are joined today by a couple people. First of all, our regular co-host, Jeffrey Newton. Everybody say hi to Jeffrey in the chat. And then we have a special guest today. If this is your first time rolling into the MSP Water Cooler, before we introduce our special guest and jump into all the fun things we have planned for today, let me educate you on what you can expect, all the cool stuff that's about to happen. Number one, this is not, there's like no PowerPoint here today. There's no sales pitch. There's no real even significant topic outside of, if you're in the IT services space, you're either an MSP business owner, revenue growth leader, whether that's sales, business development, account management, marketing potentially. You are focused on growing the IT services business that you are attached to. This is for you. You've got a couple experts on the call, and one in particular who has a unique perspective on operational maturity, who we will introduce shortly. And this is about you asking us the tough questions. So something you're dealing with actively, observing, struggling. Maybe you have a deal that you want us to triage live. Maybe you have a sales organization question or concern, go-to-market question, could be related to lead gen, marketing, sales, closing, dealing with objections, anything. We want to hear from you. There's two ways that you can interact with us on this call right now. Option number one is leave a comment. So if you're watching on LinkedIn or YouTube, leave a comment asking your question. Bonus points if it's a curveball that makes us sweat. We really like to get the challenging ones. Option number two, and the preferred option, if you're brave. On LinkedIn, we left a StreamYard link, and you can jump backstage, and we will bring you on screen. Make sure your webcam is working and your mic is working. I don't care if you're wearing makeup or not, or if you're feeling attractive. I'm sure you look great. Just hop on screen, ask your question. We'll give you about a minute and 30 seconds. We'll kick you out. And then Jeffrey, me, and our special guest will wrestle with your question. Without further ado, I'm really pleased to introduce today's special guest, Adam Bielanski, industry juggernaut and attached to Frictionless IT. Many of you know and love him already. Adam, so great to have you. Say hello.
Awesome. Glad to be here. How you doing?
Doing so great, man. So this is Adam's first time on the show. So everybody in the chat say hi to Adam. And if you're watching this, we'd love to hear from you, just like where you're watching from, or just say hi. Just say hi. It makes us feel good, and we want to shout you out as well. Adam, tell us just briefly from 10,000 foot, like what's going on in your world these days, and the types of questions that would give you goosebumps to answer today. So our viewers can be like, oh, this is different, because they're used to seeing Jeffrey and I. They're used to hearing our voices drone on forever. You bring something special. So what is it that you're passionate about?
I'm passionate about wearing hats on podcasts. That's number one. Definitely, if you're going to be joining live, that second option, which is awesome, just be sure and wear a hat and maybe bring it on backwards. First and foremost, I want to introduce myself. I'm COO at Frictionless IT, and it's been quite the journey, consulting and building operational maturity models and all this other stuff, and just coaching MSPs to grow and scale with confidence. And so just a little bit about Frictionless IT. We are really a profit intelligence software platform built for MSPs. We really combined, operational coaching with leadership coaching to really drive teams that, that we're connecting, service, financial, operational data, and really turn that into clarity, build better decisions, stronger margins, and more predictable growth. And that's what we're all after right now. M&A is extremely hot in the space, and having that scalability is super important. And so my role has been increasingly super important for MSPs to grasp that scalability. So I've been getting a lot of questions around M&A, tons. Like, hey, what's the value of my MSP? What's going on? Is it a good time to sell? Is it the right time, right market? And there's all sorts of different theories around that stuff. So I don't know where you want to go with this, but we'll let the viewers decide.
100%. No, that's really, really great. All right. So ladies and gentlemen who are watching, this is your opportunity to shine and give us a question. Make Adam, Jeffrey, and myself sweat. While we're waiting and while you guys are like just dying to ask your question, I'm gonna prime the pump. All right. I'm gonna throw one for Adam, and then Jeffrey, I'll want your perspective on this too. So, Adam, when you're talking with MSPs and you're talking about operational maturity, you are not just assessing the sales problem or challenge. You are not necessarily just assessing one facet of the business. You are assessing the whole. However, because of what we do, like, what are the biggest things that you see? Where does like revenue and growth and sales intersect with the operational maturity level of the MSPs that you talk to today? Like, what are things that you look for when you're talking to people when it comes to the growth revenue side of things?
Yeah, for sure. I think one thing you have to I'm going to take a little bit step back and kind of explain. When I talk about scalability and operational maturity, let's think of a three-legged stool. You have to have amazing service, awesome sales and marketing, and then you have to have a great financial backing, and that's the operations back end. If any one of those three legs is out, the MSP will, I wouldn't say collapse, but they're going to have a very immature operational business. That's the kind of foundation, the baseline that I kind of go off of. So Skofi, what was specifically that question you were looking for me to answer on that?
So what's the intersection of sales process and investment and dedication to taking ownership of growth? And like, how does that impact the overall maturity of an IT services organization?
When you're looking at sales and growth and marketing, I think that all comes down to vision for the organization. What is the outcome you're looking to achieve? Quite often, I will raise my hand, and me included in this particular situation, is I struggled at starting that sales engine for my MSP because I just didn't have a vision for my MSP back in the day when I was running in 2002. I would just hire salespeople. In fact, there's an occasion I'd even hire two salespeople. Let's get them competing. Let's see which one can outperform the other, and then keep the one that is outperforming. That is a lose-lose situation. First and foremost, we take a step back and say, hey, what's the vision organization? Where do we want to go? Set those goals for the future, 3 years out. And then you start marching back. Are you looking for an acquisition? Are you growing as a lifestyle business? So understanding your kind of business operating mode is really super important. Because if you have a lifestyle business and you try to go down an empire builder path, which is really strong growth, you're going to have a conflict with employees and team members because some people aren't going to run fast. Some people don't want to work those 12, 14-hour days. If you're a lifestyle business, you're going to work 6 to 8 hours a day. And I think that's what sets the precedence for really awesome and amazing, or foundations for an awesome and amazing sales engine and marketing to get that growth that you're looking for. So I struggled with it for 6 years in my MSP. It was painful. And I don't want MSP business owners or leaders to experience that today, because there's a lot more coaching, there's a lot more data, there's a lot more information out there available to help MSPs grow and scale.
So what I'm hearing is vision and your business operating model. Like, you're going to struggle around sales maturity and implementing a growth engine that actually is effective if you don't have a crystal focus on your vision, and if you don't have a deep understanding of your operating model as an organization. Am I hearing that correctly?
You are hearing that correctly, yes. And quite often, we hear this all the time. Vision. You got to have a vision for MSP. You got to have a vision. It's the operating process behind that vision that's actually going to make things really click. I see Jeffrey, shaking his head up and down. There's all sorts of models out there. So
I was actually going to pass it over to Jeffrey, because once you start talking vision, once you start talking operating model, and then you shared like 6 years in your own MSP trying to figure this out, I imagine, Jeffrey, some of what he's saying you resonate with. So what's your take on this?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I lived basically what you just described, Adam, as well, in multiple MSPs on my way up, or just in it. So for 18 years. But there were a couple of things that I want to pull out, because you hit probably 3 of the 5 that I normally go straight to, but you hit the top 3. The first one was, you do have to have that vision. To me, that was always, I'd break it down to these questions that I'd ask the MSP owners that would be asking me to help them grow, which, well, what's your number? Most of the time they can't tell me. Then I ask like, what are your numbers? And they don't even know the numbers. They're like at best managing sort of a cash flow positive or cash flow neutral existence, but like it's not towards anything. So there's like a whole different topic down that, but I love that one that you focused on. The other one was the three-legged stool. So I've been in different orgs as well, where like there was a lopsidedness, right? You had the wobbly table at the bar kind of organization, or in the last one, it was we brought sales in because they only had a two-legged stool, brought in sales, deployed it, installed it. 26 months later, we broke operations because of just the wobbliness of the other direction, right? The counterbalance. And so it is critically important that that stays in equilibrium as the whole thing grows. And so you really have to understand that. And then the other, I think perhaps the most important one, the one that I get the biggest, almost like death stares or wide eyes, was what kind of business are you building? And there's not a wrong answer, but there is an answer and you have to answer it. And it's either the lifestyle business or a business that supports a particular lifestyle is how I would usually phrase that. So like more the empire building. But I am continued to be blown away at how many MSP owners that I talk to either won't or can't answer that particular question. And when I would get asked to come in and either build, run, or install a growth motion for an MSP and they can't answer that one, like I can build one for either path. That there is no wrong answer. There just is an answer, and I need to understand what I'm bolting in and what I'm bolting on to in order to produce or provide or deliver any type of results. And so starting with those questions alone, I think is a wonderful soul searching experience that you're going to have to get to an answer before you embark on how do I grow this thing.
So we're privileged to have an OG on the show right now, and he's backstage. And Jeff, if you can hear me, we're going to pull you on here in just a second. Don't know that he needs a ton of introduction, because if you watch this show, you see Jeff very often, affectionately calling himself Kratos, God of War today. So how you doing, Jeff?
I'm doing great. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So while Adam and Jeffrey were kind of riffing on this concept of sales growth and operational maturity, I was very curious because you jumped on before we went live and we were chatting a little bit, and you run an MSP, and you, from my understanding and my relationship with you, Jeff, I know that you believe in delegation and you've built a team around you, and I don't think that it can operate as well as yours does without understanding your operating model. So I've never actually asked you this, but when Adam and Jeffrey are talking vision and operating model, I'd love to hear your take on this. Can you share with us your vision, your operating model, or just your thoughts on all this?
Well, my vision is world domination, right? So, no, but when Adam said that a lifestyle business is 6 to 8 hours a day, and I'm trying to grow this business, and I'm like 6 to 8 hours, I'm like, maybe I'm missing something. I mean, I really don't feel like the 12-hour day is where I'm at. But we are always trying to grow. We, not by head count, I believe in keeping my employees, but doing automation, even before automation was a hot topic. It's like, how can we do this better? How can we deliver this better? How do we make sure that we don't go back and fix something that we should have done right the first time? So, my vision, is growth, continue to grow. Eventually there's, I guess, a sale on the horizon. Right. This won't continue going forever. I don't want to continue doing it forever. And it's a matter of, Adam said, when is the right time? Right. So there's a lot of work to be done on that. But we're in a growth mode. It might be slower because I don't believe in 14-hour days. But it's growth.
I appreciate that perspective, and thank you for sharing that. You've got Adam's attention right now, so if you could try and throw a curveball at Adam right now, what would that be?
If my question, I'm going to ask the question I had in chat, because that's a burning question that I have. If that's all right. So, when you're talking to all these M&A firms, they're like, oh, we're gonna hire you, and then we're gonna pay you a lower salary than you make, because that's what industry standard is, even though I think it's low, but they all seem to be wanting to pay the same amount. And then in 5 years, you're going to make 2 to 5 to 7 times multiplier. So my question is, in this new M&A age, the last couple of years, have any of these platform companies sold, right? Because if you base all your finances on this fact that you're going to get this multiplier, if that say it happens, but it happens a year later than they told you it was going to, or 2 years later, right? Because if this investment is throwing off money, the investors might decide to keep it going. So has a platform company actually sold to a bigger platform company?
Yes, there actually has been transactions. I think the current one that we just went through, not us, but the industry went through, is Integris. That has probably been the biggest transaction just lately that's happened, and they actually sold out to a Canadian company, a portfolio company, and so it does happen. There is a massive amount of money in the market, and those multipliers you mentioned, and 2 to 5. I've even seen upwards of 10x. Depends on your own organic growth, your own scalability for your organization. You obviously get the higher multiples if you have your own organic growth that's strong, and you have that good EBITDA at the bottom line is really, really critical. But I think I might have misspoke. A life cycle business is not 6 to 8, or Empire is not 12 to 14 hours in a day. That's not at all what I meant. It was more of like, how hard are you working in the day? Because I know organizations that are lifestyle, and the guy puts in 8 hours a week. Right. And that's fine. It's just, and it's perfectly okay for them. It's what they want to do for their business, as long as they identify that and make sure they hire employees and team members that want to be matched to that same thing. So it's how hard you want to work. I'm a driven. Yeah. Go ahead.
Where are you going? Not how many hours you're doing, right? So if it's growth and you only want to work 1 hour a day, okay, you realize, your growth, but it's going to be really slow growth, right? But I think it's what you guys are all saying. It's really important to figure out what's the end game, right? And then work back from there.
Exactly. That scalability is super important. You brought up a really, really strong point of like leveraging AI, bringing in agentic type things, and really training and investing in your team is really super important. So you're growing very intelligently.
Love it. Jeff, always a pleasure. Kratos,
Thank you.
say, God of War. Thank you for your question. Now, I find that a really interesting topic to unpack, because when you talk about vision, you talk about where are you headed. And when I talk to MSP founders, so many of them will say, oh, exit 3 to 5 years. And then you're like, well, what does that mean? How are you going to get there? And I think I said this last time, Jeffrey, the difference between a goal and a fantasy is a plan that you're executing against. And a lot of MSP business leaders that I talk to seem to have the fantasy of an exit when they really haven't necessarily thought through what that means for them. And oftentimes they've not thought through how they would even get there. So vision, I don't think you can really build a plan until you know where you're headed and how you're going to get there. So we have another person backstage, and I think this is Tyler's first
Hey,
time.
It's not my first time. Hello.
Oh, no. I
Not my first
apologize,
time.
Tyler. Well, you're here. Glad you're here. You got a question for the group?
I do. You owe me a coffee though, because it's not my first time. I've been on here before, so you do owe me a coffee. Hi, Adam. I think we're connected on LinkedIn. So hi. I don't know if you recognize my mug, but it's AI generated on LinkedIn, so I doubt it. So one unserious question and one serious question. How about that?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay.
Shoot.
The unserious question, is that wine on the back of your screen there, or is that decoration? What the heck's going on?
That is wine back there, and my bourbon, scotch, and stuff is right over here on my other bar, all over there.
Okay, all right. Well, I didn't know if that was decoration, because then I had a really weird follow-up question to that. Okay, so working on the M&A side. I'm with Threat Captain, by the way. Hi. Hello, everyone. I'm with Threat Captain. So really, really quick, I've been doing marketing for over 10 years, and there's a big push, obviously, where people want to do founder-led stuff, which I don't think is bad. Obviously, there's a huge trust in that. But when it comes to mergers and acquisitions, whether that's an MSP, whether it's tech or whatever, is there a downside to having so much focus on a founder-led business that, again, it maybe becomes a little bit, how I describe it,
productive.
untenable, or like a person would acquire that business.
Yeah.
They're like, well, if we buy out your business, we understand that basically you're driving a lot of this stuff, and whether it's because you have a huge social media following or whatever it is, and that's really what it is. Normally, hey, everyone wants to be founder led, but no one talks about, hey, if you have a huge following and then you're looking to exit, then it might be a little bit of a problem for the person who want to buy your business. So what's the balance that you're seeing on the M&A side for that? Because it's a good strategy, right, to build trust, and everyone wants to work with you, but what's the balance when it comes to founder-led marketing and acquiring a business?
Great question, Tyler. Thank you for being here and asking your question. Appreciate it. Adam, go ahead and take a crack at this.
Yeah, this is a really good one. So I'm involved in IT Nation Evolve and also IT Nation Grow. And so at IT Nation Grow, specifically for the M&A. And so we get to hear a lot of education. And this topic was actually covered just probably 2 quarters ago. And there is if your business is reliant on you as the founder in any capacity, such as operations, sales, marketing, or even service delivery, there is a discount on your multiples because of that, because they actually have to hire a replacement for you and make sure you're scalable, because there's challenges with that. Quite often, as a coach, we often see that owners or founders struggle with self-realization of areas that they can affect the business, and getting coaching to the next level, or I like to call it the Dan Martell way, right? Buy back your time, and really it's just what tasks are you doing to be able to outsource and not take on that burden all yourself. When it comes to sales and marketing and building trust, that's really super important. I know a buddy of mine, Raja Pagoda. Everybody knows him in the space. And he has a European MSP business, built it very scalable. But he over time withdrew himself out of that, and then built up his popularity within our IT Nation community. And so that's where it's like, hey, you're building trust, you're building a marketing and ecosystem engine, but also able to scale it so it's beyond yourself, creating systems, creating processes, and so forth that somebody else can replicate and duplicate. It's hard. I will say it's probably one of the most challenging things in this space, because Scofie, we see you. Jeffrey, we see you. You see me. We're all founders in this. It's very challenging for us to, what's that message going to look like if we're able to sell or transact? I don't have the answer. I don't know, Jeffrey, if you have any thoughts on that. It's a challenging question for sure.
Yeah, no, I think the answer that I've seen is really in some of the subtext of what you were saying, which is there's no wrong way to do that through the lens of it is a highly effective way to grow. You just need to be cognizant of building the substructure or the infrastructure beneath you so that you aren't just the leg that gets kicked out of the stool, right? So there is a system in place. While you might be the face, I think there are elements of how can you replicate the growth, and or how can you not create this giant cavity when you're pulled out of the system itself. And so like no dependency there is a big piece to it. And the other thought that I had around some of that was, while that's there, you also have to be not sustainable, but like the system is important, you're important, but also then just how good's your paper, right? Because there's like only the business piece and the financial piece that ultimately ends up on the bottom line, which is one of the main areas that is scrutinized and gone through the due diligence process. And so like how good is your paper, even if you are founder-led or not founder-led? I mean, I think that's almost perhaps a bigger root issue beneath it all for a lot of MSPs, because of the way that we grow naturally, right? Like you might be a 10-year-old, 8-year-old, 20-year-old business, and you've got types of clients through that whole level of OML as well. And so you got different paper, and that's worth less than good, clean paper across your client base.
Yeah, in my experience, which on the M&A side is probably limited compared to some of the folks we have on this call, but what I see happening is there's specific things that most people buying MSPs are looking for, and a predictable growth engine being a critical part of that. Additionally, I have yet to meet an MSP founder who loves the fact that every dollar in net new business has had to pass through their fingers in order to close. So these solo founders, like, and maybe Jeffrey, maybe Adam, you guys have met that guy who's like, no, I don't want a sales team in order to scale to an exit. Like most MSP founders that I've talked to would love to fire themselves from sales. Don't know how to has been my experience more than anything. But I definitely think that when you're like, if that golden exit is ever going to be more than a fantasy and going to be actually a goal that you work towards, you have to approach sales from an operational level. It can't just be like throwing mashed potatoes against the wall and then the founder's going to pick at the wall to see what's stuck. And then maybe you'll get 2 or 3 deals this year, which, to be clear, is very common with most IT providers that I talk to every year, that they might maybe close 2, 3, 4 deals this year. Even the most mature are maybe closing 3 or 4 a quarter if the data that I've been seeing is accurate. And you look at that, I'm like, that's your customer acquisition cost is bonkers then. And if you don't have a system in place to account for that, to repeat that, you don't look very attractive on paper to someone who's looking to buy an MSP. That's what I'm seeing. Am I wrong, guys?
No, the way that I always show up to was like this question be kind of doing a time audit, although you wouldn't call it that because you'd never get any answers, was like, show me your to-do list. So similar to like, what's your number and what kind of business are you build? Just show me your to-do list. But like naturally the subconscious or the psychological piece, the truth would come out in the actual list itself, right? The quote that you were supposed to send 3 weeks ago is number 19 out of a list of 20, for example, or like call that extra lead was number 20. Yet all the technical stuff, all the things that actually hit dopamine for most business owners is step 1, 2, 3 on that list. And so like that was where the dichotomy always happened, where it's like, well, you want to grow, you say you want to grow, you want to hit these numbers, but then like even in your own to-do list, all of the sales driven activities, the revenue producing activities are at the bottom. So like there's either a commitment issue, a priority issue, accountability issue, or just a clarity issue. I think in a lot of cases, it's just the ambiguity of not knowing what to do. At the very first question that when we open, I was going to maybe ask Adam this question, was like, how can we speak to the MSP owners that feel like anything they do on the sales and marketing side is nothing more than lighting their money on fire, especially when we're talking M&A and anything else, right? Because of the things that they've tried in the past and then just written it off as, well, that shit doesn't work. It's like, well, not really. It's just the tactic that you attempted was probably flawed or the execution was flawed. And so like, how can we get people over the hump to realize that, 1, you do have to invest in your own growth. And then 2, you have to kind of overcome that psychological gap of it isn't necessarily lighting it on fire so long as it's done with accountability and with probably the OML pieces, the process and the maturity and accountability on the number to make it worth it.
Yep. I want to tell a little story, and hopefully this will impact some of your viewers. Probably 20 years ago, when I was running my MSP business, I was running it so hard, grinding things out. I actually had a heart attack and ended up in the hospital when I was 24 years old. During that time, I was getting coaching, understanding, it was just a lot of stress, working long hours, and it just wasn't working, wasn't panning out. And I realized in that situation, I wasn't leveraging, which I now have learned through Dean Jackson, is the author of the book, The Moo Method. And I'm actually part of his mentor group, Talking Moore's group. And Dan Martell is part of that same group. And I'll just break it down to you this way. If you think about your week, you have a 40-hour work week. I'll say that. Jot down all the things that you need to do in that 40 hours that you're doing in that week. Take a step back. Let's just say you're going to work half the time. What are you going to do in the 20 hours with your time? Take it a step further. Take those same tasks and narrow it down and just say, if I only have 2 hours of work in my business, what tasks am I going to do in the business? All the other stuff that you did not, that you left off the list, 100% needs to be outsourced. Find somebody else to do that job. That hit for me, and the reason why, like I was in the hospital, I couldn't service my MSP business. I had employees, I had teams, but they all relied on me. Constant questions, constant things, constantly being involved in things. And it's chaos. And so this story is really real for me. And so you have to delegate and scale yourself. And one method is the MOVE method. The more modern is Dan Martell's Buy Back Your Time. If you read that book, incredible insights on how to grow and scale. And I think that's super impactful because you don't know if you're going to end up in a hospital. You don't know what's going to happen where you can't work in your business. It's crazy to think about, but it's going to happen. Just like Arlen Sorensen at IT Nation Grow. He gets up on stage and says, whether you want to exit your business or not, it's going to happen. You want to be prepared for it, or you want to be surprised and shocked and unplanned. And that's what I'm basically the message I guess I want to say today. You know, I'm bringing the viewers down to a real level, I guess.
That's cool.
Man, no, that's such a deeply personal story and really, really impactful. And I see this all the time. Founders wearing all the hats that are burnt out, and this prospect of like, how am I going to grow is a daunting thing. What I'm hearing is write it all down and then use that process to come to the conclusion of like, what do you actually care about? What's the noise and what's priority? My fear with that advice, how like with the early stage MSP founder or the one that's been struggling, is that they're going to cloud priority with comfort, right? So like if the priority is something that, oh, I am comfortable and I enjoy doing this, but maybe the reality is the growth means I need to sit in the uncomfortable truth and do these 3-4 things that are actually going to help me dig out of this hole. I think that's a fear I would have with if I were to take your advice as an MSP who's like, I have all the things in this list. I'm going to boil it down to these 3 things that I love to do, that I'm comfortable doing, that I've been doing forever, but actually don't help me grow. What would your answer be to that concern?
It's tough. I'm not saying overnight transition, right?
Yeah.
It's a process. It's simply the fact that you're recognizing there's a lot of things to do in MSP business and writing them down on paper or however you want to do it in a notepad. And then beginning the process over the next couple of years of transitioning some of those pieces out, because you truly don't know what matters in your life until you lay on a hospital bed.
Yeah.
You truly, like, you don't. Like, it's just, you're constantly living and you know, the doctors are like, oh, you were doing drugs, you're cocaine, you're addict, you know, because I was so young.
Yeah.
Right. And I was like, you can pull all the blood possible. There was nothing in my body, no THC, nothing. And it was just that realization. It's like, you're too much stress, you're too much work. And then, you know, for me, it was dramatic, you know, and I had to like make that shift pretty quickly. But for those business owners that, you know, are just struggling and they can just start that process, the best time to start is now. And it just start creating that plan.
Jeffrey, what's your thoughts on all of this? So like, let's say I'm a small to mid-size MSP business leader and I'm having this moment of crisis where I'm realizing I can't do all the things and I'm becoming my own bottleneck to growth. Let's say I follow Adam's process that he recommended and I've gone through my list of things. I've come down. How do I identify, in your perspective, what belongs in that 2-hour box?
Yeah, I used to see this and still do. And the question I just part of a statement to a question is, just because you have the capability to do it does not mean you have the capacity or you should take it on, right? And because you have these technical folks, as far as MSP owners go, right, we are so freaking capable of doing things, and we also hate failure. And so if there's something that we've never done and it shows up, we also love solving problems. So we take it on because we're highly capable. We're incredibly adept and like resourceful. We'll figure it the hell out. And then we also get the dopamine hits of doing all of that, even though you just inherited a new burden for the most part. And so I would usually put that contrast there, where like, just because you have the capability to do it does not mean that you have the capacity or should take it on. And so through that lens alone of focusing it in and saying, what are the things that I and only I am uniquely qualified to be like the 10x lever on in the business, that's usually where I would circle the 1, 2, or 3 things that would land in the 2-hour bucket that Adam's talking about. Is like, there are a lot of things that I take care of on a daily basis that can very well be done by someone else, and probably even far better than I execute them. And whether I'm holding on to them because it's nostalgic, whether I hold on to it because it's a false sense of distraction, so I don't have to do the hard thing or something else, all of those things are still there. That's human, but the growth truly comes when you just sit down and commit to doing the things that you've been avoiding if you want to grow. And if you don't, that's fine too. It's just like the which path are you on, but that's how I would look at that.
So Adam, you were about to jump through the screen and say amen and hallelujah. I think I could see you bouncing for joy over there. I want you to chime in on what Jeffrey said about capacity versus capability here in a second. But before you respond, ladies and gentlemen who are with us today, watching us live on YouTube or LinkedIn, we're grateful that you're here. You have the rare opportunity to ask Adam, Jeffrey, and myself anything you want related to growth, operational maturity, sales, business development. And we have time for maybe 1 or 2 more questions. So if you want to get squeaked into this episode, drop your question in the comments or use the StreamYard link and join us backstage. We have time for maybe 1 or 2 more. All right, before we bring anybody else on, Adam, capacity versus capability. I love, Jeffrey, how you broke that down. Adam, how would you recommend configuring a matrix for an MSP business leader to identify whether what's occupying their brain needs to go into the capacity bucket or the capability bucket?
Yeah, and I think it simply comes down to one simple thing. Do you love doing it or not?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Do you truly love doing it or not?
Yeah. I'd double down on that. For sure. It's like pace fulfillment. That's the thing.
Yep. It's as simple as that. But you also have to, have some self-reflection and some capabilities to be able to just take a step back. Hey, do I truly enjoy doing this or do I not? And it's a thing that I think if you're in the middle of the chaos, you don't do enough of, is to just slow down, pause. Am I building the right culture? Am I building the company to be all on my shoulders? And do you truly enjoy doing that? Because we are in business. We created an MSP business and I'm on here for the first and foremost is you guys are fun. Scofie, I love hanging out in shows. Jeffrey, I love having fun. Threat Captain and Adam and what he's doing over there. He just goes out there and has some fun, and it's everybody dressing up as pirates, and then Thread dressing up as Air Force pilots, and it's just we're here to have fun. And if you're going through all these tasks, and you're like, this is not fun for me. I just have to do it because it needs to be done. Invoicing, or reconciling bank accounts, or even cold calling. All those things can be outsourced. 100% of that stuff can be outsourced.
So we've got backstage, Kratos never left. He's been with us in spirit the whole time. And he chimed in backstage. So you won't see this on LinkedIn unless, Jeff, you go and you add your comment on LinkedIn, which would be appreciated. He says, but isn't that the issue? Lots of owners like the tech work and that curtails growth. So I want to touch on that really fast before we start to wrap up here. That is my concern initially with what you were saying, Adam, is like, how do we know what belongs in that 2-hour bucket? And you're saying, well, do you love it? And here's going to be my challenge. Like, if you are a business owner and you say that the things that drive growth you don't love, then I think you're in the middle of an existential crisis, right? Because if you're an accidental entrepreneur who is a tech person who stumbled into a business and you are not passionate and do not get joy or gratification out of building the business and seeing it grow, then what are you doing? I see a recipe for a lot of masochistic anxiety in your future. But I think that's a common thing. So I think you have to soul search a little bit. Is this what I want? If the answer is yes, you need to learn to grow a passion for those things that maybe have been foreign to you. you need to learn to get excited about sales, to get excited about the prospect of speaking with your next future customer, about building a system that's going to recur new revenue into your business week and month and quarter. If you can't get passionate about it, if you can't enjoy it, I think you're right, Adam. If you don't enjoy it, what are you doing? So that's an existential question that I think you have to face yourself with. I'm a business owner and I hate owning a business. That's a problem. That's a problem, because growing a business is part of it. It should be, right? What do you guys think?
So I'll just speak this real quick, and then Jeffrey, you can go. I will also say it's okay being an engineer and just being an engineer, but also owning the business. Because guess what? You can hire a COO or operations. You can hire a CEO, a visionary. You can hire those pieces. You're still there. You're going to spend a little bit more money, obviously, but what do you want to achieve with a business? And if you really enjoy being that senior technician, senior engineer, then go do that. Stop trying to force square peg round hole, and you're going to enjoy your business a lot more. It's going to grow and flourish. Bring in the right people to handle those other tasks that you just are a drag on yourself. So that's just my opinion.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Very good insights all around. Ladies and gentlemen, we do need to wrap up here, but we do have one gentleman backstage, and it's very timely that he would show up because he is none other than our next episode's special guest. And so we're going to drag you on screen here in just a second. I see you back there. You know who you are. You're smirking. I see you backstage in StreamYard. So 2 weeks from now, I believe we'll be in March at that point, March 4th, I think. We'll have our next episode of the MSP Water Cooler. And our special guest is none other than Brian Gillette of Feel Good MSP. And I see you backstage and you're hopping in. So, hey, Brian, how are you doing?
I just was in a meeting, saw this thing go live, and I was like, oh, hell yeah. And I jumped in sort of midstream. And so I don't know. I missed almost everything you guys have said so far today, but I loved what you were just talking about. I heard the last question or two. But I wanted to ask you guys a question about that I put in the chat. Is that okay? Do we have time for a question? We
do. We'll try and wrap up in like 3 to 5 minutes if we can.
Well, okay, then it's just here's where we're at. So when you're a sales leader, here's a question for, I think, any sales leader. This is relevant. You've got quarterly goals. You need net new logos. You need or MRR goals. So what do you do when you've got pipeline with a long sales cycle like managed services? You've got pipe and you've got deals who are showing strong interest, but they don't feel like they're ready. The urgency isn't there to get a deal done, but you've got to hit your number. And other than the generic advice of like, you just need more volume in order to solve that problem systemically, like how have you guys ever encountered that and tried to sort of reconcile that tension as a sales leader when you've got a bunch of deals who want to go next quarter, but you need MRR this quarter?
Ooh. I think you're setting up the next session 2 weeks from now.
Could be.
I think that's what needs to be pondered over the next couple of weeks before you join on.
It's a really good question. Let me just reiterate it back to make sure I understand the question, Brian. So basically, they're saying, like the average sales cycle for a managed IT deal is a generous 60 to 90 days. And that's being generous. In many cases, it can be even much longer than that, as you and I both know. The question is, I've got pipeline, but it's forecasted, maybe scientifically, maybe I'm guessing, it's forecasted for like farther out from now. I need revenue today. What do I do? Is that the question?
Yeah, that's a good way to ask it.
Okay. I've got a thought, and I'm going to steal it from Robert Gillette, actually. But I will refrain from responding yet. I want to hear Jeffrey. Adam, do you have thoughts on this?
Jeffrey, I spoke last one.
Oh, sure. I was going to say I do, but I need like an hour to just walk you through the process to do it.
I know, right?
The very, very short version is selling managed services is an event-driven sales cycle, which is also why it has basically those two timelines to it, right? There's the immediate here and now within that 90 days, and then there's basically within 18 months. And so it's really a psychological problem in the buying process. And so the answer to that, which maybe we go into in 2 weeks, but it's really getting to the point where you can shift the emotional safety and the psychological security of that individual to the point where they actually fear the change less than the change itself, which is what causes them to wait and delay in most cases until they feel like it's good enough isn't good enough anymore. and moves it through. So there are some tactics and strategies we can apply for like deal velocity and pipeline, but pulling it way back to like having that not be an objection to begin with and really managing the emotional and psychological needs of the buyer to get to the point where they just act now instead of acting later is how I ran through that process.
I'm going to just give a couple little tips because I know, Scope, you've been trying to wrap up for 10 minutes.
Brian came on and dropped like a nice little hand grenade to end on. I love it.
It does take quite a lengthy explanation, but I will give a little tip. For those solopreneurs or smaller MSPs, do not assume it is all based on price. Don't immediately go to discount to get your deals closed.
Agreed.
I see time and time again. It just happens. Then you're fighting for price. And that's a lose-lose situation. You have a value. You have services that you need to offer the market, and there's a certain cost to that. Quite often we see lower EBITDA MSPs because they constantly discount their sales, and it's a struggle, and you're going to constantly fight that. You're setting up relationships, especially if it's a new logo, a new client. You're setting that precedence right off the bat, which is a bad situation to be in. So just wanted to give that little tip, with people to really take it to heart, because it's really hard and really easy to tempting to do that.
Absolutely. Yeah. One of the predictable ways that we could bring in some ethical scarcity, and I'll be quick, Scofie, too, but the putting in an actual limited number of slots for your onboarding. So it's like, well, when do they actually want to start, right? And then pull that forward where it's like, well, if you want to be up and live by X date, then we got to get you signed, ready, scheduled, all those other things, and just kind of walk that timeline back too. We use that all the time as well.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'll give my 2 cents briefly, and then we do have to be done. We have to be done. Well, there's 2 sides to this. If I'm understanding correctly, Brian, just from hearing Jeffrey's response and some of the others, there's one part, which is like, can I close my existing pipeline sooner than forecasted? They said Q4, but I really need it Q2. Can I close that? And so, Jeffrey, your suggestion is like creating a sense of urgency, like, well, it's to your benefit that we sign now. There's levers you can pull. I would agree. But if if what you're really asking is how do I generate pipeline now that will close now, here's my 2 tips. Number 1, ask yourself, do you really have an understanding of who your buyer even is? Okay, because in my experience, the majority of MSPs who tell me they have top of funnel problems or pipeline problems, they don't have enough to close. When I ask them who your customer is, the answers I get are typically very, very weak. If you have an understanding of who your buyer is, then the next part is, do you have an obsessive understanding of why your buyer buys? Because until you do that, you called it out, Brian, yourself. You're like, the only really other lever that you can pull on is volume, right? It's like, just spray and pray and do more. And that is not a satisfying answer, especially if you're in a small MSP, solo founder, or small sales team. It's like putting the pressure on the sales team. It's like, well, just do more and go find them is a daunting task that will lead to burnout and failure almost always. But if you do know who and you do know why, then you can be highly strategic about that outreach. And it's not a question of quantity at that point. It's like knowing who the buyer is, what rooms to be in. And that means your outreach is exponentially more effective. And does it mean you're going to get a contract today? It means that, like, the more conversations with legitimate buyers where you get the opportunity to pull on that lever, like, here's why you buy, here's why you're going to buy from me. This just increases the likelihood of finding that guy that's going to be the one that signs this quarter. I don't know if that's the answer you're looking for, Brian. It's a good question, though.
I asked you a really hard question because I wanted to see what you guys said. You all had good answers. And
that's what we really like. We like it when they make us sweat.
It's nice when it's a real question that
it is,
means something too, right? And obviously, this stuff comes up all the time, but
it does.
I always say, like, the best way to close a deal in February is find it in December.
100%. Yeah, that I've had that. Someone will end up on a discovery call with me, and they're like, if I don't close a deal in 3 months, I'm out of business. And they're in a sense of desperation. It's like, help me save my business. And you hate to be the one who's like, maybe a little late, late for that. If you are implementing things when you're at the crucible or the crux of destruction, it may be too little, too late. But like if you're like looking ahead and you're able to start now. All right. So Brian Gillette's going to be our special guest March 4th, the next episode of the MSP Water Cooler. And if you enjoyed the end of this conversation, that's just a taste of what's to come. So join Jeffrey, Brian, and I, Adam Bielanski, Frictionless IT. Go check out Frictionless IT and have a chat with Adam. This guy is obsessive about helping MSPs take their maturity level from here to there, and a guy that I love and trust. So you should absolutely give him some time. Adam, thank you for being here. Any final thoughts before we wrap up?
This is awesome. It's an awesome show. I enjoy it. I enjoy the conversations. It really got deep there. And it's just because it's all about impacting MSP businesses, because it is a stressful and chaotic business already. Let's just not add to it. Let's try to reduce that. Let's learn the different things from people who've been through it. I've been in the industry for 20 plus years, 24 years now. And so I'm thrilled to be here. Thank you for Scofie. I'm going to be on this thing a little more often. I enjoy it. I love the conversation.
Every other Wednesday, 1:30 Eastern. We'll see you all in the next one. Be well.
Later.